I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, one of my regular guests. He's my top regular guest. I'm very proud to be on the air with him. Very, very proud to know him. He is a former CIA officer. He is a whistleblower that blew the whistle on things the CIA was doing that could get agents around the world killed because of a database. He wrote this book. He's an expert on the deep state, the shadow government. He could have written this book last week. It's on his website, kevinshipp.com. There, I've given it away. Kevin Shipp, we got lots to talk about today. I want to get your analysis. You are an expert in counterintelligence. You guarded William Casey, the CIA director, for a year in his home. So I would suspect he had a really high clearance. And so I just really happy to have you on. And let's start with this right here. Hunter Biden, this New York Post story. This is a story within a story. People trying to tweet this story out by the New York Post, a legit journalism outfit, with the secret emails that basically show Biden knew all about it. And then we have the censorship on the backside. But let's start with the emails and how this exposes the Bidens and what appears to be a crime family.
Yeah, Greg, as always, it's great to be on with you. Thanks. Well, the story is astounding, and it's also factual. The laptop and the contents of the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop from this repair shop, has been analyzed and deemed to be accurate in terms of evidence. And it's ironic, the FBI has had this laptop for a year since this repairman turned it over after trying to contact Hunter Biden or the person that brought it in and failing to be able to contact. So the FBI sat on this thing for a year. And what this repairman did is finally turn the laptop over to the Bureau because he was afraid for his life because of what was on it, as I think he probably should have been. But being a smart computer geek type, he made his own copy. And that's the copy that he retained and eventually turned over to Rudy Giuliani, who, by the way, is a very astute, accurate prosecutor for decades and decades and knows what evidence is. And of course, Rudy went through it and realized that it's beyond a smoking gun. So it is clear from these emails on Hunter's computer, and not to mention some of the other nasty videos of him smoking crack and doing other things. It's clear from emails on Hunter's laptop that former Vice President Joe Biden did know about Hunter's relations with Burisma and actually met with one of the top 3 Burisma representatives in Washington in an off-the-record meeting in the White House. It's not on the White House logs. There's 2 separate 2-hour gaps in the logs where Biden met with somebody, and these emails indicate that person would have been one of the top 3 of Burisma Holdings.
He also, Hunter Biden rode over on Air Force Two to China and bagged a $1.5 billion deal. This is this Hennings Automotive, which the Aviation Industry Corporation of China, the AVIC, which basically caters to the China's military arm and steals U.S. technology all the time. Isn't this treasonous?
That's a Chinese espionage firm without a doubt, and yes, it is treasonous. I agree 100%. Yep.
So this is stone cold treason, not just by Hunter, but we're talking other people are implicated in the Biden family.
Well, and it's implicated that the Vice President of the United States was aware that his son was meeting with top communist China officials, both in the banks and in this private firm that was known for espionage, and the Vice President was aware of his son's business dealings with these companies. That is treasonous.
Whew. And what's the penalty for this? What do you think is going to happen with this?
Well, that always remains to be seen when you're trying to prosecute a ranking swamp creature. There's a whole lot of blocks in the way. I think there's going to be some charges perhaps coming on Hunter. In terms of Joe Biden, we'll see. We're still waiting for the Russia collusion hoax, the people to be indicted there. We'll see. It's going to be up to Giuliani and others, prosecutors, as they take this forward, frankly, probably after the election, and start looking at the evidence and then calling people in for witnesses. So it's going to take some time. We'll see what happens. There should be indictments coming for ties, links to industrial espionage, but that you're talking a very detailed, long-term investigation there.
Well, at this point in the game with the failed coup, let's move on to that. Now we have declassified FBI documentation that shows, that the media reports on the FBI of media reports, so the wrap-up smear. So they release it to the media, they report it, then they take the report and say, hey, look, this is going on to a FISA court or whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the media was involved in this coup, right? Because Strzok and Page, I brought this up before, came up with we're talking about in their text, the media leak strategy. Of course, the media would never report that. But that was actually in their text, the quote, their term, the media leak strategy, end quote.
Yeah. And it's a process they used. Daniel Jones on Dianne Feinstein's Senate Select Committee on Intelligence wrote the first story that went into the press. And then Glenn Simpson, the Washington Journal reporter at the time, later on, chief of Fusion GPS, wrote another story that went into the press. The FBI used both of those stories as probable cause for their Crossfire Hurricane investigation, and then courted the reporters. And we know that gifts went back and forth, and et cetera. So essentially, the Bureau used news reporters to create information probable cause to start an investigation based on that cyclical deep swamp technique, which they've used before.
Is there any doubt that this wasn't with all the documents released? Is there any doubt that this whole thing was a scam, a witch hunt? They made it all up out of whole cloth to try to knock the president out of office. Is there any doubt?
Based on all the research analysis that I have done, there is no doubt that this was drummed up in an attempt to prevent Donald Trump from being elected and then remove him after he was elected. There's no doubt at all, based on when you research the evidence of what's out there. There's no question about that.
Then what about you first came out and said that you weren't really keen on Barr because he was a CIA attorney, and then he started making some statements months back going, this is going to be we're doing an investigation that people got, which is now we know it's bogus. We had the unmasking investigation, no report, no charges, no evidence of wrongdoing. Not going to put out the report that he's had months to do, almost 2 years. Not going to happen before the election. Barr, is he basically proven himself along with the Epstein suicide? Has he proven himself of what he is?
Well, Greg, I've held out hopes for William Barr from the very beginning. I was the first to kind of bring out his past in terms of Ruby Ridge and getting the perpetrators, FBI, off there, and in terms of Iran-Contra and getting the perpetrators off there. He was H.W. Bush's legal counselor and close friend, and all of his past. And my hope was, a leopard can change its stripes and step out of the swamp. And, I've continued that hope for now, pushing almost 20 months. So in almost 20 months, the Barr Durham investigation has turned up nothing, with an entire team of top-notch investigators looking into the Russia collusion hoax. The only person that has been indicted, and you remember this, we talked about this, I predicted they're just going to go after a low-level employee, indict that person, and throw them out there to make it look like they're doing something. And the only person that's been indicted is Kevin Kleinsmith, this low-level FBI attorney who did change the wording in an email from the CIA that indicated that Carter Page was a CIA source. Changed that email, which affected the FISA affidavit and the eventual spying. So they threw that guy under the bus. No one else has been indicted in almost 20 months. John Brennan has been told he was not the subject of any criminal investigation. He has been interviewed and not indicted. James Clapper was told that he was not a subject, nor will he be a subject of the investigation. He has walked. James Comey, as we know. William Barr had the opportunity to prosecute Comey based on the recommendations of the Horowitz report that Comey had illegally leaked information to get the special prosecutor appointment. And Barr determined that he was not going to prosecute Comey because he found, quote unquote, no intent. That is not mentioned anywhere in the legal code, intent. Comey used that to get Hillary Clinton off. So I started seeing all these red flags, one after another. And so here we are pushing 20 months into Barr's investigation. And then what the DOJ and Barr did was they exercised the 60-day DOJ rule, kind of ran out the clock. And that rule says that the Department of Justice can engage in an investigation just 60 days before any U.S. election, which puts everything on hold, which is where it's at now. So they ran the clock out all the way up until the election itself. And I understand from the interview that the president did with Rush Limbaugh, and others that Trump is very upset with Barr for running out the clock like this, for no indictments before the election, and then basically putting this thing on the back burner and freezing it until after the election.
Is Barr going to face the same fate as Jeff Sessions, that weasel that basically recused himself and allowed the whole phony, illegitimate Mueller investigation and a pack of angry Democrats, which couldn't turn up anything on the president? I mean, he was the reason why that happened, Jeff Sessions.
Right. That's right. Yes.
Which is disgusting. And is Barr going to, is he going to face the same fate once we find out that Donald Trump wins?
There's two ways this can go. Donald Trump wins, and he's already upset at Barr. Will there be any major indictments after the election? I hate to say it, but I doubt it. So if and when that happens, I think Barr's job is going to be in jeopardy. Now, of course, if Biden wins, which I doubt, then the whole investigation will go away. But I think there's a very good possibility that Barr could be removed after a Trump victory.
Wow. You think Barr's, based on his actions, you think Barr's toast if Trump wins?
Well, we have to understand that William Barr is a long-term deep state careerist. He's no dummy. He's very, very smart, and he's been working his way through the shadow government deep state for decades now. So after the election, it's not going to be easy to just make him go away. So I think what we're going to see after the election, should Trump win, and I think he will, is there's going to be more public disagreement between the president and Barr's actions. There's going to be less indictments, no indictments probably. Trump's going to be upset with that, and then Trump will probably start rattling the saber about replacing Barr. And we're talking months after the election.
I don't know. He might surprise us all and dunk him early.
It could be. It could be. It could be, which would really be.
He's pissed.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what they put. You know what these Mueller weasels put him through. Do you know what these crew people put him through, and everybody around him?
Yeah.
Not just his family, but particularly his family and everybody else. I mean, Carter Page was a CIA asset.
Yeah.
And they tried to make him out like a Russian spy. I mean.
Yes, and it was a soft coup. There's no question about it. And no one involved so far has been indicted or even told that they were a subject of a criminal investigation. None of the main players involved has that happened to. That is extremely concerning. And after the election, we know now, because Trump is coming out and saying it very publicly, he's very upset with Barr that no one's been indicted. He's very upset with Barr that he's been put through this, his family's been put through this, and nothing has come out from the Barr-Durham investigation. And Trump is saying those things now. You wait till after he's elected, and you can guarantee that he's going to escalate that. And then we'll see. We'll see if he removes Barr immediately and what happens after a Trump win.
I mean, I don't see how Barr can sit around and go, there's no wrongdoing. I mean, it's idiotic. It's moronic.
You know,
it's in the face of all the documents. Yeah. Are you a moron? Did you go to law school?
Yeah.
Did you go to did you graduate the 8th grade?
Yeah. I mean, the laymen have put together the evidence faster than Barr has in the number of months that he's had a full staff at his disposal. Yeah, and I've said this from the beginning, you know, Greg, because we've talked about this. What they did here, and I'm talking Brennan Clapper, I'm talking also Gina Haspel, who was this chief of station in London during the creation of the Steele dossier, and Comey. What these people have done is weaponize the existing shadow government, and there's a difference between the shadow government and the deep state. I'm talking the secret intelligence agencies. What these perpetrators did was they weaponized the existing system that I've been blowing the whistle about since 2012. This is an unconstitutional system in these secret intelligence agencies that they use to target people, and they get away with it. And these people, the perpetrators, Brennan and Comey and others, knew that they could use this system and get away with it. And that includes the unmasking scandal, where Susan Rice and Samantha Powers, the UN ambassador, unmasked the names of over 300 Americans, members of the Trump campaign included. And we just found out that the Barham's attorney that was appointed to investigate that has closed the investigation with no substantive wrongdoing, quote unquote, and nothing happened, and they all walked. what did they do? They weaponized the existing system, and they knew they could get away with it. I've been saying that from the beginning.
And thus, just so you know, I don't get paid anything for this. I just love your book. And thus, this book, which could have been written this week, explains how it works, how it goes on, how it's a pretty detailed book. It's a long book. It's a nice book. It's going to be on the website. We'll talk about that at the end of the. I'll put it up on the end of the at the end of the after the interview section. I'll put links up and all that other stuff. So, I mean, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you know, sadly, I come from the belly of the beast. I know how it works. I've seen these things happen. I've seen people get away with things like this on the inside. I know how they do it. I've known it since I came out and blew the whistle on the entire system and wrote from the company's shadows. So as I saw this unfold, frankly, it was no surprise to me that these people protected themselves using that system and that they're not going to be indicted.
Yet.
God, we all pray to God that they will. But, you know, just in my humble opinion, I would not hold our breath for indictments of major figures even after the election.
Well, I have actually been engaged in hopium. You know, when he made these statements about, oh, this is a real investigation. Remember a few months back?
Yeah.
Oh, we're just not going to write a report. This is a real investigation. No. I mean, I hate to say this, but he looks totally captured. He looks corrupt. He looks compromised. He looks bad. I mean, I guess they got something on it big enough for him to dunk his career.
Well, and that's what it's all about, is his career over everything else.
Oh, he's going to dunk it here. He's going to be fired.
He's a swamp creature.
He looks guilty as sin.
Yeah. The chances of him being fired, I think, with a Trump victory are pretty strong. You know, and he lost a lot of. He lost me with the Epstein case. You and I've talked about that. That case was blown so badly. It appears to have been intentional. That was under Barr's watch. One of the most important witnesses in U.S. history was suicided, and it was not a suicide. That was under Barr's watch. When he removed the warden from the prison involved in Epstein's death, he removed him. But what he didn't tell people was that he didn't fire him. He promoted him as a regional director. So he lost me there. And then it's been one red flag after that, one after another. And I keep hoping, and there's another red flag from Barr. I keep hoping there's another red flag. Now we find out the unmasking. There's going to be nobody held accountable. It's like it keeps proving me again and again and again that he's a swamp creature.
So your odds-on favorite when Trump wins, bye-bye, flush.
Yeah.
No, Trump's not going to keep him around. There's no legal reason. Maybe 6-7 months ago, hey, this is a big case. It's global. It's all these people. And, you know, maybe a year, 6, 7, 8 months ago, yeah, you could have made that case. That's when he was making all these. We're doing it. Oh, this isn't just a report. This is an investigation. I think he mentioned criminal, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
What a dope.
It's really disconcerting.
I know. Okay. So the FBI. I want to move on to that because you worked with the FBI. You've got a.
I did. I was co-located with them. Yeah.
Oh, yes. This is why this is good. So there's a story on the internet, and I brought this up to you in the pre-interview. And it's the guy lays out the fact that I said, what do you think about that? He says, oh no, this was a false flag. No, they dummied this whole thing up. You know, the anarchists they got and capturing Gresham Whitmire, and they're on the air. Oh, it's Trump supporters, which is a total lie. Tell me about the FBI and their crooked FBI, yet at it again, being even more crooked. And Christopher Wray has to be involved in this. He has to know this is going on.
Yeah. Well, you know, as soon as that story came out, knowing the system, having seen the system, I was in the counter-espionage group. My supervisor was a senior FBI agent. Knowing the system, as soon as this story came out about this alleged kidnapping, I turned to my wife and I said, this is a fake. This is a false flag. And it turns out that what occurred, which they have done way too many times and gotten away with, is the FBI planted a person in amongst these who brought up the idea to all these other nutcases. And it was an FBI agent that brought up the subject of kidnapping Whitmer, and then got all these other people chatting back and forth. And then the FBI busted him and acted as if it was a legitimate plot, which it was not. It appears, based on everything that I've read and seen, it was a false flag by the FBI, and of course to be used to try to besmirch Trump leading up in the days before the election.
Had nothing to do with Trump supporters.
No, and it turns out that these were anti-Trumpers. One of the main perpetrators was anti-Trump. They had links to Antifa and other things, which they conveniently left out of their reporting. These were anti-Trump people allegedly involved in this plot.
And that's the people stupid enough to do this. And
right.
so, and then Northam, Mr. Let the Baby Die, Northam, and Gretchen Whitmer, another, black hole of nothingness, let the baby die deal, or harvest their organs while they're alive. That actually happens.
That's right.
That's on sworn testimony.
Yeah, correct.
The Planned Parenthood admitted that. But anyway, I digress. But I just for you Democrats out there, this is a fact. That's not hyperbole. It's not tinfoil hat stuff.
That's right.
But so they go out and have all these press conferences. Oh, Donald Trump's words mean something. He's got to be careful about what he says. Total lie. Yep. It's their people doing this.
Yep. Well, that's exactly correct. And it's funny that they tried to, with the Russia collusion lie and hoax and the Steele dossier and all these other false things that originated with Hillary Clinton, they pushed Russia way out there, while the rest of them, Joe Biden, for example, Hunter Biden, and even Dianne Feinstein and her husband have deep financial ties with communist China. And I can tell you this from being in the counter-espionage group, communist China is our #1 espionage enemy that is engaged in deep multi-billion-dollar industrial espionage against the United States. Feinstein, Biden, and others are up to their pockets with China. So of course they're going to push Russia and Russia collusion and try to keep everybody's eyes off of China. Well, sadly for them, that's coming out now.
I mean, they're so reckless they could get us into a war with Russia.
Yeah,
which is like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right.
It's totally bogus. I mean, the only people involved with Russia working with the Russians are the Clinton Democratic National Committee, which he took over, and the Democrats working with Russian agents for disinformation. I mean, that's a fact.
Fact number one, the information in the Steele dossier came from a high-level Russian intelligence officer. I've been saying that for 4 years. This was a Russian disinformation operation that fed information to Christopher Steele. Finally, it's come out, and that's been proven. And the Russia collusion was not on the Trump side. It was on the Clinton side. Intelligence has also now come out that the Russians were trying to push to get Hillary Clinton elected because she was their buddy. So it's the exact opposite. The collusion took place on the Democratic side, on the DNC side, not on the Republican side. But what Marxist organizations or corrupt organizations always do is they blame the other person for what they're doing. It's the oldest propaganda technique in the book. You're engaged in collusion with Russia because they are, and that's what they've been doing.
The polls, the PSYOP. I want to bring this up to you because you're a counterintelligence agent, expert, not agent, officer. But I just want to get to this here. Oh, sorry. Editing. Okay. Powered by trust on pandemic, Biden leads by 12 points nationwide ABC polls. ABC said the exact same thing in 2016. I brought this up in my weekly news wrap-up. 2 weeks before the election. This is a little more than a few weeks before the election. 3 weeks, I don't know. So what is that? I mean, this guy cannot he can't put, 3 people in a phone booth. Let alone, have 10, 15, 30,000 people at an airport clamoring to see the president speak, out in front of Air Force One.
Right.
What's going on with these polls?
Right. We see these polls that are being pumped out, of course, by the mainstream media. And then we see what everybody sees on the street. Biden campaign's having events that no one shows up to. In one case, there was 33 people there. No one meets him in the airport. He gets off the plane and waves to the tarmac because there's no crowd there. So what we're seeing is completely opposite from these polls. And also, we need to understand 2 things. One, the polls are influenced or even created by CNN, who pumps out information. The people who watch CNN regurgitate what they've seen when they're called by a pollster. And secondly, these pollsters are smart. They have to say, well, we polled a certain percentage of Republicans, but they don't tell you where those Republicans are. Typically, they're in Northern Virginia, which is the most liberal Republican area in the country, and they talk to those Republicans who are anti-Trumpers and then use them as the Republican sample. So these polls are manipulated and messed. We consider them. We don't disregard all data, but we consider the surrounding events of the polls, how they're taken, the questions they're asked, and where they're sampled. And that's why they're coming out with these 12% figures, and we're not seeing that on the street. We're seeing Trump rallies packed, people waiting hours just to get in. He comes into an airport. He's a rock star. So we're seeing on the ground what happened in 2016, that there is a huge support behind Donald Trump when these dwiddly little polls are coming out saying the exact opposite. And you've got, and this is, maybe too strong a term, but a person called him a buffoon in the basement. But you got a guy that has a serious mental degradation by all accounts, including medical doctors, and that's Joe Biden, who's been hiding in his basement, not holding rallies, and the ones that he did hold, there's no one there. And you're telling us there's a 12% lead. I think everybody's going to find out again otherwise.
I think there's going to be a landslide. I mean, I showed you this before. Ron McDaniel put out this thing about how they surveyed a little more than 10,000 people, and 29% were Democrats.
Right.
That's a stunning amount of people coming to a Trump rally.
That 29% is huge.
And they're not there to take frozen bottles and bags of nasty and throw them at people. They're there for the rally.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
I mean, I think it's going to be a blowout. I said that on 9/11, my weekly news wrap up. I said I'm predicting a blowout. Is that what you see from a counterintelligence perspective? Do you see a blowout? I guess. And then plus, this is why the cheating has to be so over the top. But do you see a blowout?
I think Trump is going to win by a landslide. I do. And many of those people are going to be Democrats, and there's a large African-American percentage out there now saying they're going to vote for Trump, including some leaders, many leaders. So I think it's going to be a landslide. He's going to win very strongly. And we all need to be prepared. November the 3rd at 9 p.m., when the announcement comes, bad things are going to start in the streets, in my opinion. But I think he's going to win, and he's going to win by a margin. And we're going to see some fireworks. I want
to circle back to the stuff in the street that you see, your analysis for that. But I want to back up to if it's a big enough landslide on election night, and I mean he's winning by 10, 12 points here. And number one, do you think they can thwart the cheating? Because the cheating has to be huge. The cheating has to be in your face monster, not a little cheating. It has to be huge. Can the cheating pull this off for Hunter Biden, or will it be stopped? Will it be detected and stopped? It's big.
I think, well, obviously cheating is happening. Some of it has been stopped already. But when Trump wins and the announcement is made, I think that the margin is going to be so wide, it's going to be a clear victory. And
the cheating won't defeat it.
Hillary Clinton and others have been trying to push Biden not to concede, but I think that once it happens on November the 3rd, I think there's a possibility that Biden will concede. That's just me personally. But the DNC has got over 200 attorneys right now staged and ready to fight the election results. That's on the legal side. And then on the street side, of course, we've got Antifa, Black Lives Matters, and others who are already preparing for unrest and violence in the streets should there be a Trump win. So I think it's going to be a clear victory, but I think there are, as I said, going to be fireworks, both in terms of legal challenges, in terms of violence on the streets. What is Joe Biden going to do? Joe Biden is for lack of a better term, kind of a ventriloquist dummy. He's going to do whatever they tell him to do. So whether he's going to concede or not is not going to come from him. It's going to come from Barack Obama and some of the other people that are advising him behind the scenes. And they're probably going to advise him not to concede. The question is, it's going to be so evident. Is he going to do it anyway?
Well, what about my contention is this, and I haven't really talked to you much about this, but my contention is the key is Joe Biden. I mean, now you have all this stuff coming out about China and the family business and the kickbacks, and Hunter Biden or an email, hey, don't worry, I won't make you give half your pay to Pop, to me like Pop, like he does. I mean, basically, he's getting 50% cut. That's what it indicates of these kickback schemes in China and Ukraine and wherever. But if she sees this going bad, isn't she going to strike when the leverage is the maximum to say, don't worry about the attorneys, don't worry about Obama or anything else. I'm going to do what's good for me and Joe. So President Trump, could you shield us from any BS if we go out there now and concede? Is that a scenario that might happen? You being an expert in counterintelligence, or am I just nuts? And don't be afraid to tell me I'm nuts.
Sure, that certainly could happen, and those kinds of deals are cut in Washington all the time. Excuse me. The only factor that may be somewhat mitigating is Trump's personality, in that Trump is upset at what these people have done to him. And so when he wins by a large margin and they try to come and concede and say, let's cut a deal so there won't be any prosecutions, Trump's not the kind of person to roll over and say, yeah, okay, we'll let you off the hook. And so I kind of wonder about that because of Trump himself.
Yeah. They're going to try to float that out there. I mean, Joe Biden has to be terrified. He's a meat puppet.
He should be.
He's a disposable sock puppet. I mean, they already said Biden's a doorway. Yeah, and a welcome mat.
Yeah, yes. Biden's been dishonest and corrupt for his entire 47 years. Now he's in mental decline, and he could potentially going to be in a lot of trouble because of all this. This is industrial espionage, at least through his son. And they find a connection from his son to him. That's pretty serious.
And what about the Giuliani? I mean, he is dropping these, 1,000-pound solid granite stones every day about these emails. He just bing, boom, bing, boom. I mean, he's doing this on purpose right up to the election, right?
Yeah. Yes, and we have to remember, despite the pictures you see in the Washington Post where they take a picture from the ground up to Giuliani, making him look like an old man on a cane, they do that sort of stuff. Despite that, the fact is Rudy Giuliani is one of the most successful prosecutors, government prosecutors in our history. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows this is good, hard evidence, and he knows how and when to release it. And that's exactly what he's doing. And it's powerful stuff.
Now let's talk about the violence. I wanted to kind of dissuade you because I wanted you to talk just about this. So is Barr doing anything to stop this violence because he has the FBI at his fingertips? Of course, Christopher Wray said Antifa is just an idea. So those ideas are burning down multiple cities, around the country. Is he going to do anything to stop this, or is he going to be a total seditious, treasonous windbag and allow, Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all these other weasels to burn down the country?
Well, that's the one thing I think Barr is doing. The one thing perhaps that's in his corner is, yes, he does have an ongoing task force. Some of these people, I think 8 have been arrested already, the ones that were the masterminds behind some of these violent protests. So it's clear to me that Barr is taking action here. That's ongoing. People are being arrested. That will continue up to and probably after the election. That is the one thing that William Barr is doing. And I think the evidence is out there that is ongoing.
But you think it's going to be wackadoodle crazy time? I mean, would you be out in the street after election day? Would you put yourself in a position where you could stay home for a few days?
I would recommend strongly that November the 3rd, that people stay off the street, that they practice good situational awareness. If they have to go out and drive, they need to be careful because there is going to be some significant, with the Trump win, there's going to be significant violence in the streets, and it's going to be lethal in some cases. And I think it's going to be a very, very, very dangerous time, not just November the 3rd after 9 p.m., but after that, a week, 2 weeks, maybe even leading into January. These groups are going to be out there staging, engaging in violent, sometimes lethal activity, and people need to be careful, know that in advance, and just be cautious.
And your advice to people, I'm not trying to stoke the fears and play on the fear porn, but you would be in a situation where you didn't have to go out to buy food, you had your car filled up, you didn't have to leave your home for a few days to see how this shakes out.
I would say that would be the wise approach. It's called situational awareness and understanding that these groups have already come out and said that they are going to engage in violence. They've already made those statements. They've been doing it already in the streets. The fact they've been doing, the fact that they say there's going to be a revolution in their words that evening, beginning that evening, put those facts together and you can reach the conclusion, I think very valid conclusion. Be safe, stay off the streets, don't drive through big cities unless you absolutely have to. If you do have to drive, take somebody with you and just understand that there very probably is, and I think you can almost count on unrest in the streets when the results of the election come in. So people need to be aware of that. And yes, good idea to stay home, stay off the streets if you can. If you travel, be safe, take somebody with you and just be very careful.
Stock up.
Yeah.
Have food.
Yes.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm a bit worried about the war situation with China, and China has been doing awful. They've been buying our grain and they don't want to do it. The flooding over in China is awful. They've lost pretty much a season of growing. Tell me about your fears of China, because you think they're the biggest threat facing America.
There's absolutely no doubt they are the biggest threat facing America. And beginning with the trade disputes, trade wars that already put China in economic hurt. We know that Japan is spending $200 million to pull Japanese countries out of China. In Europe and in the UK, they are pulling businesses out of China. The US is pulling businesses out of China because of all of this. The United States has been now providing advice and other things to Taiwan, which has further escalated that. And China's economy is already in trouble. It was in trouble before all of this. They were facing a serious recession before any of this happened. So they're almost in survival mode. And a CCP general has just come out and said, if the United States continues on the path that it's continuing on, there's going to be war between the two countries. So yes, it is escalating with China. There's no question about that. That's very, very serious. And that is, I think, in my view, it's going to intensify. But probably through proxies. China will do it through proxies, and then China would do it. They will confront us directly militarily by probably challenging some of our carriers in the South China Sea and other things. China is escalating. They will continue to escalate. Their position as the number one world power is now faded. Their economy is in trouble. And typically, down throughout history, wars have started when economies of nations are in trouble, and that's where we're at here.
Well, speaking of economy, I know you're not an economist. I know you're not that, but you are an analyst. Economies are part of counterintelligence. What's your appraisal of the U.S. economy? I've been warning people that don't get too comfortable. This is not over. This sea of printed money is covering things up. That this is ultimately going to turn ugly when all the money stops and the protections for paying your utilities and your mortgages and your rents and all those moratoriums stop. Your appraisal on the U.S. economy, that's my appraisal. What's yours?
I think you're absolutely correct. We have been facing, and we are still facing, a serious economic crisis in the United States with the national debt over 23 trillion now, and that's not counting the missing, 22 trillion you and I have talked about before. Trillion, yeah. With the national debt soaring, what COVID has done to the economy was already in trouble before COVID even hit. That just amplified it and made it worse. The dollar is losing its value, and of course the Federal Reserve and others are now talking about digital currency, which should raise the hair on the backs of all of our necks. But no, we are heading for a financial crisis in this country of our government's making because of really poor fiscal irresponsibility. People need to understand there is a financial crisis coming. Trump has held it back, at least he did up until COVID, and we're still floundering, but there is a financial crisis coming in this country, and it's going to be very serious. And that's where you and I have talked. People need to prepare for a financial crisis in this country, and they need to, hopefully they've started already, but if they haven't, they need to start now.
Kevin Shipp, what a great just a full-rounded talk about all the stuff that's going on, at least most of the stuff. Oh, one of the last things I want to talk about. With all the censorship going on, the Twitter, they're throwing Kayleigh McEnany, the White House press secretary, off. Hunt, the White House or Donald Trump's campaign people thrown off. They're stopping any viral Facebook pages of this story from the New York Post saying that this is an unverified story, and the New York Post isn't a real legit outfit, which both counts are true. And then we have the knockout of all these channels. And now YouTube says that, some of them were Black Lives Matter and Antifa supported channels and people that supported that. And on the other end of the spectrum, people like Amazing Polly and X22 and SG, that's some pretty good channels. They had, I think Amazing Polly had 1 million subscribers. And poof, it's gone. What's your appraisal of this? Is this just more censorship, a few weeks before the election?
Well, I'd have to tell you, I think Amazing Polly's done some great stuff. There is no excuse for any censorship at all, period, in my view. Whether you agree with it or not, whether you think it's evidentiary enough or not, there's no excuse for the kind of censorship they're doing. Now, what they're doing in censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story very possibly could be election interference. And it looks like they may be hauled before Congress to account for that. And if so, that's criminal. And I think they should be held accountable. With these other websites that they're taking down, some of them are suspect and they're connected into some kind of kooky conspiracy stuff, but still, I'm a huge proponent of free speech. And to just take these things down in droves like this is a very bad sign. You and I have talked about this. One of the reasons we created kevinshipp.com is YouTube started messing with they haven't taken me down yet, which is amazing. And Twitter hasn't blocked me yet either, which is amazing by the grace of God. But they are increasing their censorship of conservatives. And also even channels that are conspiracy channels, that's fine. They should be able to get out there and put their stuff out there. There's no excuse for shutting those down. I think the big point here is Twitter and Facebook shutting down all of the reports on the Hunter Biden laptop to influence the election. That could be a felony, and I think they will be brought before Capitol Hill on that and held accountable. These other websites that they're taking down, that should be a heads up to all of us, whether we agree with those websites or not. This is what YouTube will do and Twitter will do if they want to silence any message. So prepare yourself to be taken down and have an alternative.
There are some candidates that are suing Twitter, saying you're helping my candidate, my opponent, and you're not helping me, and that's an unauthorized campaign donation. You are involved in getting involved in the election by helping my opponent. In this case, in Florida, the woman was talking about Charlie Crist, and punishing me. And that's unfair. I don't know. I can't exactly what it was, but it wasn't about censorship. It was about getting involved in the campaign, getting involved in the election that they were suing over. And she says it's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Good, because it is past time for these social media companies to be held accountable for them censoring and manipulating information. And in this case now, they kind of stepped all over it, because now they're interfering with an election. Bad calculation on their part, because they're busted and they may get in trouble for that. Something has got to be done about Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and their censorship and their monopolies that they have over social media. Something has got to be done. They've stepped way out of their bounds, and now they may be even violating the law.
Do you think, my read on this is that they're so over the top with this, so in your face with this, that they have to be worried about the election? It's all hands on deck. We're going to go ahead and do it. I mean, do they seem desperate to you, or is it my imagination?
No, they are desperate. They are so desperate. These people are not stupid. They have whole teams of attorneys when they make these decisions. They are that desperate. They're taking that kind of legal risk to suppress these stories. They are that desperate to try to prevent Trump from winning, because they're seeing what's happening and that he probably will win by a large margin. That's why they're taking even a legal risk to try to stop it.
Very good. Always interesting, my friend. Your brain is very well oiled, my friend. The book is from the Company of Shadows. He talked about it and the metrics and how this all works, and the shadow and weaponizing the shadow government, and that's a little different than the deep state, but same animal, little different spots. That's going to be after the interview section. There's going to be a snail mail address there to help out Kevin Shipp on his new website, kevinshipp.com. It looks great, buddy. You're putting stuff out there all the time. It's fantastic. You got new stuff coming out all the time. And it's very interesting to see how you think, as opposed to, I'm a reporter, so I don't think like you. I'm not trained to be in counterintelligence, and some of the stuff I think, you go, that's not going to happen. But you were first to bring up the whole William Barr thing. You were first to bring that up. And I know we had some hopium. We wanted it to be good for him, but, ultimately your original analysis was he's a deep stater. And that's what happened. But anyway, you have your, tell me about your Patreon channel. You have the Kevin Shipp Intelligence Brief.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. It's patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp. And I have the Shipp Intelligence Brief that I put on there for members. I also have advanced courses in surveillance detection, how to spot a liar, detection of deception, and some personal protective courses that I've taught around the world on that channel too. So that's my baby. That's my love. And that's the one that we really cultivate and enjoy.
There'll be multiple links for you folks out there. There'll be multiple links in the after the interview section for donations, for the Patreon channel, for the book, which I don't get a piece of any of this stuff. I do this because I like you, man, and I want to see you succeed. And I know you were punished by the CIA, you lost your pension, and you were punished for being a whistleblower, a real deal Holyfield whistleblower. Kevin Shipp, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Greg, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure.